We're now going to talk about part 3 of the overview for the Scalable Microservices course. And in this part of the material, we're going to talk about how to set up Java in IntelliJ, how to set up GitLab, and how to access Java 19 source code if you so desire to look at it, which is very cool. So in order to use Java 19, you have to download and install the latest release of IntelliJ. If you have an old version of IntelliJ for some other class you took a year or so ago, or even last semester, it's probably not the latest version. So make sure you go to this link, and you can download either the Community Edition, or you can download the Ultimate Edition with a student access. So if you're at if you're at Vanderbilt, which you are, you can get access to the so-called Ultimate Edition. You can use either one. Doesn't really matter for what we're doing. So you download and install it. It's pretty fast and easy to do. And it'll prompt you for whether you're on Windows or Mac or Linux, or rather it'll figure it out which one your browser is, and it'll download the right one. And then once you've downloaded everything, you need to open up Project Settings, the Project Settings menu, and go to the SDK portion of Project Settings. And you can go ahead and add the appropriate SDK. And the one you want to add is version 19. So you want to go ahead and add that. Click download. It should magically install everything, knock on wood. So you'll have that up and running. Very, very important. For the first assignment, it doesn't really matter, but for later assignments, when we start using the new modern Java features like virtual threads or structured concurrency, if you don't have Java 19 installed and you don't have the latest version of IntelliJ, things will not work and you'll be very confused. And it's very perplexing when these problems occur. So make sure you do that. The other thing you'll need to, and the good news is, for those of you who've taken the Android course with me, or courses that used Android Studio, this is a lot less work to get things installed. Android Studio has a couple of extra steps you have to do, but doing IntelliJ should be pretty straightforward. Next topic, setting up GitLab and associated things. So what you want to do is you want to go to GitLab and you want to create a new project, and you'll basically also need to log in and set up an account if you don't have one already. Should be pretty straightforward. We use GitLab because by default, projects on GitLab are private, whereas on GitHub, projects by default are public. So my material that's available for you, like the skeletons for the different assignments, that's all public, so that's on GitHub. And your projects need to be private so that other people can't see them except me and maybe the TAs. So you'll go ahead and create them on GitLab. So you create a project, and you give the project a name. And it's very important to give it the right name. And the name should be CS in capitals dash 891 dash spring dash 2023. And by the way, the pages may look a slightly bit different. They change them every so often, but this is more or less what you're going to see. So you go ahead and create a project. That's the project you want. And then once you create that project, it'll initially be empty. And then you will go ahead and add me as a maintainer, which means that I can see your code. And that's important because I need to be able to go and make comments on your code and push them back there so you can address the comments. And this will go ahead and set things up. So you should have the project done. And once you've made your GitLab repo, then you're going to do the following things. And this is pretty straightforward, but it's got a few moving parts. So let's kind of walk through it. So after you create your GitLab repo, which is step 1, then you'll go ahead and clone your GitLab repo to your local computer. So you'll say, this is, say, on a command line prompt, git clone, git at gitlab.com, and then you have colon your login name, whatever you chose, /cs-891-spring-2023.git. And that will go ahead and basically make a local folder, which is where you're going to put all your stuff. Now, another thing to note, you're going to have to create an SSH key prior to doing almost any of this stuff. That's when you set up GitLab in the first place, and here's some instructions for how to do that. So once you've cloned things, then you can go ahead and change the directory into that folder. So now you're in your folder. And the next set of steps, this is all assuming you're using the command line. You can use the IDE if you want to. This is guaranteed to work. So what you're going to do is say git remote add skeletons from my repository. So what you're really doing here is you're saying, go ahead and get stuff from my account in my CS891 folder, and that will kind of connect things together. And then you say git pull skeletons main, and that should go ahead and pull from my repository the assignment 1A, assignment whatever, into your folder. So you'll now have in your CS-891-spring-2023 folder on your machine, you should now have a subfolder or subdirectory called assignment 1A, start with. And then you do work. So you'll go ahead, you'll take a look, watch the video, please. Look at the to-do tags you have to fill in, to-do markers you have to fill in. You'll do a bunch of work. And periodically, as you're doing your work, you want to commit the changes. And you typically say something like git commit dash A dash M, and you give a little string that says like, first assignment solution or whatever you want to say. And then also periodically, and I usually merge these two things together, you want to go ahead and push your changes to your code. You want to push it to your repository. You don't want to try to push it to my repository, because my repository is read-only. You just get the skeletons from my repository. You want to send the changes to your GitLab repo. And so what's happening here is you're doing the work here in your folder, and then when you commit, it goes to your local repo, and then when you push, it goes from your local repo up to your GitLab repo in the cloud. So this is the one that's on your machine. This is the one that's in the cloud. And that's where you want your code to be. And you want it there for two reasons. Number one, putting it in the cloud means that if your laptop gets stolen or it crashes or it's eaten by your dog or whatever, in that case, you haven't lost all your work, which is why it's important to do commits and pushes frequently. And number two, it allows me to go look at it, me and the TAs to take a look at the code. So if it's on your computer, I can't see it. But if you push it to your repository, then I can go take a look at it. And you get my material from my repository. So you basically get that stuff and then work on it. So this kind of gives you the overview of how things work. There's plenty of good descriptions. There's also a frequently asked questions link here that talks about how to do the Git operations. And if you look at my website, there's also kind of a frequently asked questions thing about how to use Git. So take a look at that as well. The most common thing you'll have to worry about, which hopefully won't happen too much, is merge conflicts. And so if you read my wiki page, it'll describe how to deal with merge conflicts. You could also get access to the Java 19 source code. It's not required, but it's kind of cool. Java is an open source platform and has been for some time. And you can either browse the code, or you can go ahead and download the code. So if you go here to this link, you can download the code. And the current version is 19, and then 20 and 21 are in development. There are interesting things that may come along there, but we're going to be using version 19. OK, so that's the end of the overview of kind of dealing with configuration stuff. Definitely start on this early. Do not procrastinate and wait the day before the first assignment is due and start trying to do these things, because undoubtedly something will go wrong, and you'll need some help from the TAs or whatever, or the community by posting to Piazza. So make sure you start early on that.